Okay, so does anyone have anything they'd like to share or comment on or ask any questions?
This is Matthew. I had a question, but
Yes.
I also came up with thinking something I've been thinking about for a while, and I came up with some answers, but I feel like um, they're probably not as complete as the answers you would have. So I was just kind of wondering if I could share sort of my exploration, and maybe you would have some feedback sort of on my thought process regarding
Mm,
the matter.
that sounds wonderful.
Awesome. So I'm thinking about, I've been doing some push hands training with my brother Ransom. I've been thinking about the idea of double weightedness because I hear that thrown around a lot. And um, I've seen like, when I go to push hands meets and on YouTube, it seems like different teachers kind of explain it differently. Um, so I'm sort of thinking about, well, I wonder what the principle is, like what the deeper underlying idea is. And one explanation I saw that seemed really simplistic, but kind of gave me some ideas was when two people are rooted and they're bracing and they're basically just pushing into each other and trying to outroot each other. And that sort of got me thinking that's basically like meeting force with force or meeting resistance with resistance. And um, so by that logic, I was thinking, well, even it doesn't really matter how you create the force. Like if you have hung, and you're doing 9 pearls and you're trying to spread the pressure, or if you're doing on and you're like trying to slide up their fascia. If you're meeting a force with forcefulness, however you're doing it, it's probably double weighted. So really, I guess the conclusion I was coming to is really what it was saying was um, yield. Like, don't be double weighted, but when the force comes in, meet force with relaxation so that you have flow. Whatever they're trying to do to you, if you try to just do it back to them, then you're meeting. It's like mentally, psychologically, you're opposed. So even if it felt to me when I was thinking about like even if you were doing something really light and like just trying to like play with glue and like feel like someone's balance, if you're both doing that to each other, you can both be like double weighted in a sense because you're both trying to outmaneuver each other in that area. Whereas if someone's doing that to you and you yield to that and then you do the push hands um, order of operations and follow and then lead and then control, that wouldn't be double weighted. So that was kind of my thought process on it. But then I started to wonder, um, I wonder if I could be double weighted like within my own body, because as I was practicing like Blue with Ransom and like feeling his balance, um, I started to be able to feel like the way he was tensing, like the shape he was holding his body. And then when I was doing like Z health, I could feel my own tension and my own, like my ribs were uneven this morning, side to side. And whenever I'd noticed it, I noticed my first urge was to like force them back into this position. But then I'm meeting force with force. So I'm meeting like the resistance in my own body with more forcefulness, which did not have as good of results as actually following the shape, yielding to it basically, and like following what it wanted to do. So in my mind, I'm basically seeing double weightedness as the absence of yielding and following, and meeting resistance with resistance or force with force, whatever that looks like in the medium that you're interacting with anything. And so I guess I was wondering, I just wanted to check my understanding of that. I was wondering if there's anything you would add, or yeah.
That was really good. That's actually, I would say, a really complete thinking process. The only thing I'll do is I'll simplify it, because I would say that what you said is really accurate. It is actually accurate. It is basically, are you meeting force with force within the medium that you're interacting with, whether it's with yourself or someone else? So if you are not yielding, but yielding, I want to make sure, is not a collapse. So yielding is basically where you maintain flow. Right? Because so you can yield in a way. So yield, so the word yield, can be interpreted many different ways. But the better word is follow. Because the word follow doesn't have this connotation that you collapse or that you give up or things like that. And so so follow actually is actually, if you follow something, then you're just listening. So the intent of yielding is to understand, is to follow, is to actually be in flow. Because when you follow, there's naturally a flow. Right? Because if you're following something to understand something, then automatically you're not resisting something. So I want to just start there. But let me actually just give a picture. So double weighted, you're correct. Double weighted is actually where you meet force with force. But let's start with the picture. Double weighted is actually the picture of someone who is fearful and is hunkered down. And when someone has lost mobility and has become stiff, then they're on their both feet and they become immobile and they become a sitting duck, as they would say, because you become stiff out of fear. So you become immobile. So whether you become immobile by yourself or whether you become locked in and immobile with someone else, doesn't really matter. You've lost options. You're locked in. Right?
That, yes, I can connect to that feeling of being locked in. I'm like remembering what that feels like. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So the reason I want to give this picture instead is because you can actually stand it. So like some people would interpret and say, oh, you need to move. But then you move, and actually in Tai Chi, you don't need to move. As long as there's movement, you don't need to move, meaning as in you could stand still, but if you stay relaxed, as you were saying, and you're not double weighted, as in you're not locked in, or as you would say, meeting force with force, when your body's relaxed enough, then the force comes in, and just with your intent of listening, the force goes back. There was zero movement on your part, so to say, but actually there was lots of movement together. As a matter of fact, actually, there was more movement from a force perspective because you didn't move, right? It's like the most efficient thing. So if, let's say, for instance, your body was relaxed and you didn't move, none of the force got dissipated. And since none of the force got dissipated, all the force went back into the opponent. That's the most amount of movement you can get.
That makes sense. So to summarize, it sounds like it starts with the intent. And if your intent is to listen and to relax, then it'll be very hard for you to become locked into something, even if it happens momentarily. If your intention is relaxing and listening, then there'll be more and more flow and less stiffness, and your options will increase instead of decreasing.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's basically, from an emotional perspective, it's a state where there is no fear. And, so from a physiological perspective, it's where you're not hunkered down because of fear, or you're tensing because of fear, where you're relaxed, and there's flow. From a motion perspective, there's flow of force, however it happens, whether it's happening through your motion or, through just the force returning. And from a chi perspective, again, there's flow. And from mind perspective, you're not over-focused. Right? I mean, you're they would say empty, as in your mind is clear. Your mind is not cluttered with ideas. It's listening. It's an observation without evaluation. And so that be double weightedness, and it can be all understood with a simple picture of not hunkering down and locking yourself in from a fearful place. That's that picture, kind of like, just kind of is a good summary of all that.
Yes, I can feel that. It's very helpful for you to connect it to the physiology and to the emotional aspect of it. I see how, like in my thinking, I didn't go, it's like you broke it down in terms of each kind of every aspect of the experience when you were explaining it. So that it's kind of like, oh, well, of course, that makes sense. But I'm kind of appreciating that and noticing that I'm sure I could do that more. Like that would help me understand Tai Chi things better, to break it down like that. So I think that's really cool.
Oh, good.
Where
Yeah.
you kind of covered the four intelligence sort of. Now I'm curious. Now I'm like, I want to like start exploring what type of emotion, if I'm going away from fearfulness and feeling scared and or angry or forceful, it's like what, getting a better picture of what type of emotional state I want to go towards. Almost, that seems like a really high leverage point. So that's really cool to sort of think about it in the different aspects like that.
Yeah. And what you just described is called intent. What do you want to go towards? That's basically intent that Tai Chi is talking about. And so that's why it says that if you capture the other person's intent, you've won, because the intent of what the other person is looking at or is going towards determines the outcome of their physiology. And so depending on where their mind's at, they can easily become a sitting duck, if you will.
Mm. So it sounds like you're saying that, like when I think of intent, I usually think just in terms of intention to move in a certain direction or in a certain way, or in physical terms. But you're sort of expanding and saying no, intent needs to be understand not only through like physical terms, but also through the emotional result, the emotional intention, and the physiological sort of tension and the feel, in that way as well as just like the physical. Um,
Yeah. That's well said. You know, oftentimes people focus on the body, but then they're not aware of how they're emotionally feeling, that they're actually feeling a lot of fear. And so, so they move separate from how they feel.
mm-hmm,
But you know, your feeling is actually your being. Like, you know, like the actual language betrays it. You know, I am happy. So it's who you are. I am, right? I am happy. So
mm,
like, I am scared. I am tense. So you can see that your experience and of how you feel determines your state of being.
mm-hmm,
And so, you know, I am a sitting duck, right? So if you don't deal with the I am,
mm,
then you cannot not be a sitting duck. Even if you try and move, you will still be moving from a tense center point of view. Um,
mm-hmm.
and so you will not at the core, you will at the core still be double weighted, even if you extern. And so you see that actually there, you'll see Tai Chi practitioners who move, but for some reason the center is still tense. And so they still get pushed over even though they're moving, because at the core, somehow they're still tense.
So it sounds like really this part about the physiology and the intent and the emotion is almost more fundamental than the physical, because what comes to mind is, well, I've seen the other two where I've seen people where they don't look like they should be any good, but for some reason things it just kind of works.
Yeah,
It looks like
yeah,
they're getting lucky, but
yeah. They're not getting
like
lucky.
no, like they have
Yeah.
that mental or the physiological or the emotional part of it down.
Yes. That's why once in a while you come across someone who is just coming and they have no Tai Chi experience, and they're just there and they're just having fun, and you know, and they seem to be using lots of force, but for some reason they're pushing all the experienced people all over the place. That's why that happens.
Mm,
They're actually relaxed at the core.
mm,
So their spirit itself is playful and relaxed. And Professor Cheng Man Cheng actually would talk about how you need to have a playful spirit,
mm,
and you know, it's like basically at the core is your spirit relaxed. Because if you're not, externally you might look relaxed, but really you're tense.
mm. That's so awesome. I'm just like connecting to that feeling right now. I get a really unique feeling sometimes when I go into like how I want to feel when I do Tai Chi. It feels
Yeah. Exactly. So so sitting duck has to be at all levels: physiological, emotional, mental, and spirit, like in your spirit, and meaning as in you know, are you spirited, are you not spirited, like your morale. uh, and so which actually also can translate as your energy. So that's one of the reasons why you always look at those four factors and you determine the intention. And the intention basically is, what is it that you're looking at that determines all that? So typically you have, a mental picture, and either you're looking at a scared mental picture or you're looking at a positive mental picture. And the whole point of training is that your mental picture, because so fundamentally accepting is actually probably the best word, which is, which is actually the only thing that allows a person to be present, is so fundamentally accepting that you just become present.
Is compassionate close enough if accepting is a little tricky?
They're the same thing. There's no difference. Yeah, they're the same thing.
That's helpful. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like looking at an elephant and saying, I'm petting the elephant on the side and saying, it was like, you just need to make sure that, you pet the elephant, and then you're saying, well, can I pet the trunk instead? It's almost like kind of like making a, it's like they're all part of the same thing. Gratitude, compassion, acceptance, they're all different aspects of the same thing. We're talking about love.
Oh, okay.
They're all different facets of love. It's like, where are you looking at it from? So, and all the negative emotions is when you've fractioned off and, you've become double weighted. You're divided against yourself, and that's what a negative emotion is. And so.
Wow, I'm having so much appreciation for all the processing right now. Seeing it relate to push hands, I'm like all excited to to go try this out when I'm pushing. This is like super epic.
Yeah,
it was really
processing is emotional pushing hands with yourself.
That makes sense, because it's looking at framing it from the idea that there's if you're processing, you're double weighted, like you're already your force on force inside your own body.
Exactly. So therefore you're divided against yourself, force on force in your own body. You're double weighted. And so instead you're looking oneness, because Tai Chi always looks for oneness fundamentally. There's no division. And it's the only way. That's why, oneness, acceptance, same thing, right? It's the only way you can achieve relaxation. How else can you achieve relaxation?
Yeah.
I mean, if I state it like that, it's like, of course, like, yeah, right? I mean, like, yeah, of course. Okay.
Wow, thank you so much, Master Kim. This is,
you're welcome.
Super awesome, super helpful.
Very good. Okay, now I am done cleaning, so I gotta go. But that was good pushing a discussion. So thank you for the question. And the rest of you have a great day of oneness, and see where you double weighted, and find some flow within that.
Thank you, Master Kim.
Thank you, Master Kim.
Thank you, Master Kim. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Master
You
Kim.
as well. Welcome.